Be strong.
Soon, another king was killed, and now the current number of kings is 11. Dokja smiles and thinks his desired man has come, and with this, the number of kings is reducing gradually. Everyone is shocked to see that the number of kings is reducing rapidly, and they observe that someone must be there and is killing them one by one. However, the tyrant king doesn't seem to be worried about this and is killing the people rapidly. Suddenly, there is a crack in the roof, and everyone starts watching toward it. A large number of big rocks fall from the roof and take the tyrant king under them. Now, the current number of kings is 7, and they are shocked to see the situation happening right now. The tyrant is strong, but he isn't definitely the strongest, because the most powerful of the 7 kings of Seoul is Younghyuk. Dokja waves his hand toward him while he is watching him furiously and says he will kill him this time. Out of the 7 kings, he has met the following so far: the Hermit King of the Shadows, Donghoon Han, the King of Beauty, Jiwon Min, the Maitreya King, Sangzong Cha, the Earth Dragon King, Tisong-gu, and the Tyrant King, Yang Hujiang. There is one neutral king who hasn't appeared yet. There is still one king left, and had met this king before he met all the others. He is among the most powerful of the 7 kings of Seoul, Younghyuk. He calls Dokja and furiously says he will kill him this time. He is coming toward him, while thinks he sure is worthy enough to be the main character because he sent him all the way up north, but he already has a black flag. Seeing as how he's angry means Jihai and Huiwen must have done their jobs right. He then asks Seong to give him the sword, but when she refuses, he asks her if she wants to die there. He then calls Gilyong, who is summoning an insect, and suddenly, a grade 6 monarch-level insect Titantera has appeared there. In the meantime, he grabs Seong's flag, and his purple flag has absorbed the contribution points accumulated in the black flag. He is notified that his purple flag has evolved into a black flag, and he can now use the skill of the black flag. He received a congratulatory notification that he had accomplished the first king's qualification. Now, the current number of kings is 6. He has also obtained the item, 3-wheeled ring, and the dragon jar from the tyrant king. Suddenly, Younghyuk rushes toward him to attack, but he puts one of the guards in front of him and dodges his attack. Younghyuk attacks the guard and beheads him, while Dokja asks him to hold on and talk to him for a bit. He talks about Memo, his sister, and asks where he has hidden her. Dokja wonders what he is talking about while he uses the skill of lie detection to check if he is lying. He has then confirmed that Dokja is telling a lie, and Younghyuk says he will kill him if he doesn't tell him about his sister. Dokja agrees to tell him but asks him to put his sword down first. Younghyuk asks him if he plans to hold his family as a hostage and angrily says he should have killed him. Meanwhile, Dokkaebi appears there and asks them to calm down and says they can't be fighting. He then reveals that all the qualifications have been met because the current number of kings is 5. Now, the qualified kings will be transported to the last stage. Younghyuk shouts at him while he seems calm, and with this, all the kings have been transported from the place. Dokja reaches a place and is notified that he has been disqualified from participating in the final king's qualification. Dokkaebi appears and says he has missed an important detail because he was too focused on the big picture. He is notified that he has failed to occupy his target station because the condition says he must occupy his target station in order to participate in the final king's qualification. He forgot that the target station was Changsan Station, and the Dokkaebi said he couldn't participate in the final phase if he didn't complete the previous phases. Dokja thinks he forgot about the target station because he was so focused on taking out the other kings. He wonders if he should head over there, but the scenario would be over by the time he got back. The kings have already started fighting. Suddenly, Sangha appears from the side and calls him, while Huiwen also appears there with a little girl. She asks her about her brother, and Dokja asks her why she is there since he asked her to wait at Nagsan Station. She replies that she couldn't stand there and wait for him, and the girl hasn't had anything to eat since this morning. She asks Dokja if she is his sister, but she replies that Dokja is not her brother because he is uglier than her brother. Dokja knows that she is Younghyuk's sister and thinks he had planned for Younghyuk to go north after seeing the note he sent with Jihai. He then had Huiwen save his sister so he could manipulate her. He then turns back and goes for somewhere, and on being inquired by Huiwen, he replies that he is going to take over Changsan Station. She then calls the girl and asks her to give him that thing she gave her, and Dokja is shocked to see that she takes out Mia Yu's skill inventory from her mouth. Huiwen asks her if he knows about the thing, and he is shocked to see this because this is the flagpole of Changsan Station. She exclaims that he only needs the flagpole to take over the station, and he is still shocked that she brought the flagpole from Changsan Station. The constellation, the adventurer who makes eggs stand up, is moved by Huiwen's idea. She then asks him what he is waiting for, and asks him to plant the flag and get going. He plants the flag and is notified that his group has taken control of Changsan Station, and he has received 2,000 coins as his reward. Now, his body will be transformed to the stage of the final king's qualification, and he reaches inside the place with a notification. All kings can no longer receive the support of their constellations, and the items that affect their attack and defense stats will be restricted. Moreover, the overall stats of all kings will be reduced to 10 by 10. The final king's qualification will continue until there is only one man left standing. There are already present the King of Deity, Ji-won-min, the Maitreya King, Sangjong, the Supreme King, Young-hyuk, and another middle-aged man. Soon, the neutral king, Il-do-jeon, forfeited, and this fight should have ended in less than a minute because of Young-hyuk, but they are still fighting bravely. Ji-won calls him and says they meet again when she doesn't want to fight him, while Dokja doesn't expect her to have survived this long. Dokja says he will attack her if she doesn't forfeit, and she asks him to go ahead. Meanwhile, the king Sangyong seems tired and injured. His body has multiple injuries, and Young-hyuk jumps to attack him again. Dokja remembers that Young-hyuk finds a loophole in the last phase, because this is a fight with no skills, no stigmas, and an average stat of 10. Everything seems to be completely restricted, but there is only one thing that is not restricted, which is coins. A notification appears in which the Lady of the Sleeping Brocade is questioning the fairness of this scenario. There is a problem with their right to spend the coins they have, while all increased stats will be reset after the scenario ends. Dokkaebi asks them to think about spending their coins because they are pretty much throwing them down the drain. After a while, Young-hyuk attacks the Maitreya King, Sangjong, and with this, he can no longer fight. Ji-won is watching the scarcely and thinks they probably don't have any coins left, and there is no way they saved their coins during their battles to get there. However, Young-hyuk has always had some to spare, and Dokja knows that he should have about 40,000 coins. In the meantime, Ji-won also forfeits, and now there are only 2 contestants. Dokja thought that he would come straight for him, but he is taking his time, or he is trying to see how high his stats are. He thinks Young-hyuk probably wants to win using the minimum amount of coins possible, and he could get his sister back if he sat on the ruler's throne. Dokja uses 4,000 coins on his strength, and he uses a large number of coins his strength, and his coins in possession are decreasing rapidly. He then exclaims that he will go easy on him, and asks him not to die on him. He has spent a total of 72,000 coins, and his strength increases from level 10 to 100 and thinks it's time to reap the fruits of his investments. His strength has now surpassed that of humans, and he is the first to have strength in 3 digits. He has received 30,000 coins as a reward. Young-hyuk is also shocked to see his power level, so he jumps upon him and punches him. He spends 10,000 coins on his agility, but they have no effect in front of Dokja. Soon, Dokja reaches his neck and attacks him with his full might. After some time, Dokkaebi appears there and says it looks like the underdog has won. Young-hyuk is unconscious while he wonders if he hit him too hard. He then gets him up and says he startled him, but he is surprised that he is still conscious after being hit with 100 strength. He calls him again and says he should have been nicer to him and asks how he can threaten to kill him every time he sees him. Dokja receives a congratulatory notification that he has passed all the qualifications for the ruler's throne. His temporary stats have been reset, and all the restrictions that were put in place have been lifted. The constellation, Prisoner of the Golden Headband, is satisfied with the ending, and the constellation, Secretive Plotter, applauds his will. He is also notified that the constellation, Demon-like Judge of Fire, is impressed by his tenacity, and he has been gifted 4,500 coins. In the meantime, the constellation, Lady of the Sleeping Brocade, is mortified, and the constellation, One-Eyed Maitreya, throws his eye patch to the ground, and the constellation, the Lord of Hanam, blames Dokja for this. Dokkaebi appears there and says it was a fair fight, and he announcement to all the incarnations of soul that they now have a new owner of the ruler's throne. Dokkaebi is about to announce his name when he stops him and asks if he isn't being a little too hasty, and she makes the announcement when he hasn't even sat on the throne yet. He asks Dokkaebi what he can do with this thing, and Dokkaebi asks him to make other humans do his bidding. It's just as the name implies, as long as he is seated on the throne, he will be the absolute ruler. He asks him if this is the only benefit he will get, and says that sounds too good to be true. He will have absolute power over the ground in which he rules. Dokkaebi says he is only getting what he deserves, and he has risked his life to get where he is now. Dokja asks him if this throne gives him powers that override the rule of plausibility. He claims him a good liar and says it's because he is a Dokkaebi, and asks him if the management has rules against lying like that. Dokkaebi says they should not argue over this, and they have to end the scenario, and if he keeps acting out, he will just destroy the ruler's throne. Dokja asks him to go ahead and destroy it because he doesn't care. He turns back and says he refuses to sit on the throne, and everyone is shocked at his decision. It starts raining, and everyone is staring at him quietly. Dokkaebi breaks the silence and asks him what he just said, while he seems so angry, and Dokja replies he is not going to sit on the throne. Dokkaebi doesn't understand why he is so stubborn and asks him to sit on the throne because Seoul Dome won't be able to make it through the fifth scenario. The people shout at him and ask him to sit on the throne, while Dokkaebi says it can give him everything he wants and more. Just by sitting on the throne, he will become a fable, and the constellation promised to rise in its ranks. He also warns him, saying he is not like the low-grade Dokkaebi, and his trickery won't work on him. Dokja thinks what he said is true, because the fifth scenario will be difficult to clear without the ruler's throne. But he knows that there are some things he is not telling him. He knows that if he uses the power of the ruler's throne even once, then he won't ever be able to reach the end of the scenario. In the book, Young-hyuk realizes this only on his 41st regression, and a man calls him from behind and asks why he is refusing this being a king. He asks them why they want him as his king and asks what would happen if he just killed them after he sat on that throne. He also asks the other people if they have forgotten already that they used to live in a democratic country, but why they are all acting like they are subjects of a kingdom. More importantly, he doesn't want to rule over the likes of them, and this is why he refuses to sit on the ruler's throne. He also states that he doesn't want to sign with any of them lousy constellations, and he puts his hand on his sword and says he will stop anyone else from sitting on that throne. Dokkaebi calls him from behind and says he is testing his patience, while Dokja asks the people how long they will let the Dokkaebi push them around with their scenarios. This goes for all the constellations of Korea as well, and he knows that all constellations are not the same, and some are higher in rank than others. Dokja asks everyone for how long this land must suffer at the expense of their bickering. He says they make history and become historical constellations and build up fabled acts to become fabled constellations. He asks them what they will do when they will become the brightest shining star in the sky. He then talks with the constellations and asks how much longer their descendants suffer just so that they can fulfill their desires. Some constellations are in deep thought over this, and some fall silent. Dokkaebi snaps his fingers and says he can't let him go on, and with this, a new sub-scenario has arrived, with the clear condition that they have to subdue Incarnation Dokja Kim, who refuses to sit on the throne and usurp the throne for themselves. Dokja smiles and thinks he knows that it will come to this, and all the people are staring at him for the greed of the throne. Huiwen runs from a side, stands in front of him and challenges the people to come at her if they dare. Dokja is also surprised to see her anger, and Minseob comes to him and says it looks like he is the main character of TWSA instead of Young-hyuk. Seongguk also stands for his help and says he would never do anything this absurd, and Sangha states there are values they must uphold no matter how the world changes. Sangha says she believes in this statement sincerely, and all of his team members put their lives on the to save him. However, he is shocked to see that the King of Beauty and the Maitreya King also come and stand in front of him for his help. She says to Dokja that she is going to help him just this once, and Maitreya King says he could tell by reading his mind that he has a point. Dokja is still shocked at their help, and Dokkaebi calls other people and asks what they are waiting for, and asks them to get him. The people rush toward them and start fighting, and Huiwen asks him if he has a plan and what he wants them to do. He asks her to buy them some time so that he can destroy the throne. The people observe that he is using the 4-yin demon decapitator, and he activates the Ganpyeongwi's special ability, Echo of the Stars. He will call upon a constellation, and after some time, the echo of the star allows him to seek the help of a high constellation. He then calls the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. Dokkaebi gets angry about this and is staring him with murderous intentions. He is notified that the stars have set sail, and a line of star constellations appears in the sky. He calls upon the 1st star of the Big Dipper, Tamlang, the 2nd star of the Big Dipper, Jiaman, and the 3rd star of the Big Dipper, Nokjan. The 4th star of the Big Dipper, Mangak, the 5th star of the Big Dipper, Yongjiang, and the 6th star of the Big Dipper, Myogak. Currently, the 6 constellations are looking at him, and one of them asks him what he is thinking. They warn him that if he calls all of them, his mind will be destroyed, and some ask him why he called them and why he is walking on a thorny path. Suddenly, he starts coughing and bleeding, and Dokja thinks to be able to use the 4-yin demon decapitator, he needs to call one more constellation. He is notified that the Ganpyeongui cannot be used any further. He thinks about the reward item the Tyrant King received from the 7-man dungeon, the Dragon Jar. Moreover, by sacrificing the S-grade item, the 3-wheeled ring, he will recharge the usage count for the S-grade item, Ganpyeongui. He is notified that the Dragon Yi exudes its mysterious power, and with this, the S-grade item, 3-wheeled ring, has been sacrificed. The usage count for the S-grade item, Ganpyeongui, has been recharged. He then calls the 7th star of the Big Dipper, and all the stars gather, and there is a line. The constellations ask him what he wants from them, and he replies that he wants to cut off the tie the throne has with its owner and requests them to lend him their sword. They ask him if he knows what that entails and think about the ruler's throne, the reward item for the 4th scenario, and this, the throw allows the user to borrow the powers of one of the rulers of the dark dimensions. He thinks it will be handy to have such powers for now, and he will be able to control Yoonhyuk and neutralize his enemies there. However, their world will end as a result, which is the price he must pay for borrowing such great power. Even the constellations don't want anything to do with him, and they ask him how he dares to challenge the owner of the throne. Dokja replies that he is not trying to fight them, and he only wants to cut off the tie between him and the throne. The constellation says he cannot handle the plausibility and will die because of it, but Dokja says that is his decision. They agree and ask him to start the process by putting their powers into the sword and are notified that the S+ grade item, 4-yin demon decapitator, has been upgraded to a constellation artifact. The constellations say they respect their decision, although he may die there, and they will remember him always. It is revealed that the 4-yin demon decapitator is a sword made to be used in rituals, and it is one of the few items that can cut the tie a constellation artifact has with the constellation that owns it. Dokja observes the true power of the 4-yin demon decapitator. One may think that becoming king by using the ruler's throne would make it easier to complete the remaining scenarios. The people wonder if he is going to destroy the stone, and they want to stop him from doing so. Huiwen shouts at him and asks him to hurry, and he stabs the sword into the throne with all the power he has received from the constellations. There is a crack in the stone, and with this, it has been destroyed successfully. The protection cast on the constellation artifact, the ruler's throne, has been removed. The sub-scenario has been ended, and a notification appears there saying a mysterious ruler has noticed the sudden chance in this world. Dokkaebi shouts at him and calls him an insignificant worm, and the constellations ask Dokja to prepare himself for the burden of plausibility. He thinks he will be fine because things have to seem probable for something to be plausible, and he has done everything he could to make things look plausible. Suddenly, he feels so much pain in his body, while Dokkaebi laughs and asks if he really thinks he would get out of this unscathed. Dokja feels as if his body is going to shred apart, and his every body part starts bleeding. Huiwen and Sangha are shocked to see his condition, and after a while, he is notified that the constellation Naval Warfare God is looking at him. The constellation Bald Army General is looking at him. The constellation, the last hero of Hwangsanbeal, is looking at him while Dokja feels his pain subsiding. He can feel that the constellations are sharing his burden of plausibility, and he receives multiple notifications that the constellations are looking at him. Dokkaebi is not happy with this, and a constellation asks him if this is the story they wanted him to tell, and they will be watching him, the king of the world without a king. The 4th scenario ended abruptly, and he achieved a non-existent achievement. After a while, a new fable was created, and the fable, the king of the world without a king, was created. Due to an unexpected event, the reward calculations will be delayed, and Dokja thinks there is no next regression for him, so he will end the story in this world. After a while, dokkaebi comes to him and says he shouldn't have done that, and he will personally make sure that he regrets what he did today for the rest of his life. Dokja says he must be mad since he won the round, and with this, he has managed a fable during the fourth scenario as planned. The people don't seem happy with his decision to destroy the throne, so they ask dokkaebi to give them another ruler's throne, and they will take part in the scenario again. Dokkaebi replies that the scenario has ended, and no one can change that, and whatever happens to all of them from now on is all because of this man. He snaps his finger and says he would love to see him try a world without a king. He transports people from there and says he will see how long they can survive without a leader. Dokja is also shocked by the situation and wonders where everyone has gone because this wasn't supposed to happen. Huiwen, Sangha, Minseab, and everyone disappear in front of him, while dokkaebi asks if this world ends, it's all because of him. Dokja is shocked by the situation, and soon after, he is the only one who stays there. He shouts at dokkaebi, who is watching him while smiling, and Dokja disappears from there. Dokkaebi laughs and says he will be sure to keep an eye out to see how long he will last. However, a notification appears that he has obtained 10,000 coins as a reward for completing the fourth scenario. Dokja is unconscious and dreams about a time when some boys at school bullied him. One of them grabs him by the neck and asks him to dare to attack him. He asks him to go and make front-page news like his mother. At that time, he thought he could kill them if they were Younghyuk. Now he is watching his past life and wonders if this is a dream. He thinks he was really into TWSA because he used to have pathetic daydreams like that. Of all the dreams he could have, he thought about Minu Song and wondered what he was up to these days. He heard he went to a good university and got a great job despite being bullied. He activates his personal skill, the fourth wall, and wonders if Minu is still alive. He also activates level 3 of the omniscient reader's viewpoint. When he comes into consciousness, he hears Huiwen's voice calling him and asks if he can hear her. Jihai is also there and wonders why she is in the school of all places, while Hyunseong finds himself in his military office. Dokja observes that everyone seems to have been teleported to a place with personal ties. Mid-level dokkaebi must have created solo scenarios for each individual, and even if this was independent of the main scenario, he would have been held responsible for pulling something like this. He tries to talk to Huiwen and asks her to keep herself safe, saying that he will come to find her soon. With this, he deactivates level 3 of the omniscient reader's viewpoint. He wakes up on a rooftop and finds himself on a rooftop and thinks he should have been teleported to a place he knows. He then recognized the place and was hoping he would end up anywhere but not there, and with this, a few constellations were excited to hear what he said. This is the rooftop of Minosoft, the company he used to work for. He wonders why he ended up there of all places and remembers that every time he would get an earful from his managers, he would come up there with Mr. Yun to pass the time. He wonders if his manager is still alive, and a notification appears that 10 days remain until the 5th scenario begins. A sub-scenario has been started as a filler, and its clear condition is that they have to survive in the ruined city for 10 days, and they have to eat 3 meals a day, sleep for 6 hours every night, and pay a survival fee of 500 coins before going to sleep. If they fail to perform any of the 3 conditions, they will be met with a penalty. Dokja thinks it is the perfect time to stock up on coins. Suddenly, he feels there is no king in the Siacho-gu area as far as he knows, and he observes that they must be wanderers. He observes that the area belongs to the wandered, and he decides to do some research. He finds his battery dead and needs to find a portable power bank. He comes downstairs and thinks about his team and misses them. He opens a drawer to find a power bank when someone appears from the side and asks him who he is. He is shocked and excited to see Mr. Yun there and happy to see he survived and is alive. He then tells him about the whole story of how everyone who was working overtime was put in the first scenario. Mr. Yun reveals that he killed Mr. Kim by himself and abuses him, saying he always used to give them an earful, and he stabbed his neck with a pen and the blood. He seems so excited and says he feels like he is in a game, and Dokja asks him if he is alone there. He replies that he has a group with him and asks where he has been all this time. He doesn't think he has seen him in the building and asks him about where he has been all this time. Dokja replies that he was in the Gwanghwamun area, but something happened there and he calls him an unlucky guy. Mr. Yun says he doesn't need to clear the scenarios himself, and if he stays hidden, the others clear the scenario for him. He says there is no point in risking his life and says there is no need to worry about anything because wandered like them have gathered to form a group. He shows him his group, which has a large number of people. A man observes his presence and asks Mr. Yun about the guy with him, and he replies that he is a work colleague of his and that he bumped into him. The boy asks him if he is a wanderer, and they are not accepting people from other groups. Dokja asks him about the boy, and he replies that he is the manager of the coin farm. He asks him about what the coin farm is, and Mr. Yu takes him to a place where Dokja is shocked to see the situation. A man is beating another one brutally while others are cheering for him and asking him to beat him more. They ask him to kill him, and it is the best he can do for now. The constellation that loves the Colosseum is overjoyed. Dokja is shocked to see the situation, and Mr. Yu tells him that the players are the king of the video game industry and the CEO is the king of Minosoft. He asks him who he thinks is the king in the new world, and Dokja asks him if they are using the coins paid by the constellations. He replies that many constellations love stuff like this and pay them coins they are gifted in return for food. Dokja thinks this thing appears in TWSA too, but he didn't expect to see it this early. However, many constellations are bored by the fights taking place in the cages, and Dokja thinks they are not making much since they are in their early stages. Mr. Yu says he arrived on time and will see something very interesting. They have put a man in the cage, and Dokja asks him if he isn't from Minosoft. The men are screaming for help and asking them to open the door. Mr. Yun says he once said that games these days weren't desperate enough and tells him that players don't open up their wallets to a game with a generic plot. And he thought about it, and he was right. A man throws a dagger towards them, and some constellations wonder what is happening. Mr. Yu calls one of them and asks him to get the picture, and he asks Dokja if he remembers these people. They are the head of the department, deputy manager, and director. With this, a few constellations have announced the start of the Colosseum. Suddenly, the boy suits up in armor with a notification to enact his revenge. Mr. Yu asks him what he is waiting for and asks him if he has forgotten what they did to him. He tried to persuade him, saying he took his presentation and pretended as he did it himself, and the deputy manager worked with him like a slave. A few constellations sympathize with a newbie, and a constellation that loves vengeance wants the newbie to take revenge. Some constellations are interested in the new plot unfolding. He forces him to take the dagger and attack them, and with this, a few constellations prepare themselves to gift their coins. Some constellations want to see the revenge take place, and constellations who love the Colosseum are preparing their coins. Dokja indicates that they are even creating plots for the constellations. Meanwhile, a man calls others from behind, says they have some fresh meat, and asks them to lock them up, and Dokja seems to recognize the girl. They discuss putting on a new show with her, and Dokja recognizes her as the plagiarist, Seong Han. She is unconscious, and a man is discussing all the constellations that have their eyes on this place. Dokja recognizes her as the plagiarist, Seong Han, while everyone watches the fighting between the employees and cheers them up for killing each other. Dokja thinks she will definitely die if he leaves her like this, but if he keeps her alive, she will get in his way. Aside from him, she knows the most about this world. The scenario has changed a lot, so a lot of what she knows is useless now, but still, he should keep her alive. Suddenly, he realizes what he is saying and wonders if it is right for him to decide who to keep alive and who to let die based on how useful they will be. Meanwhile, Mr. Yun comes to him and says he can give her to him if he promises him one thing. Dokja asks him what he means by this, and he asks him to introduce him to his group because they are preparing to expand their forces. He observes his swords and says he seems fairly well equipped, and Dokja replies that he can do this for him. But in return, he wants him to stop this fighting and brittleness. In the meantime, the fighting is happening, and the people are enjoying the show. Mr. Yun asks him what he means by this. He is shocked when Dokja asks him to let these people go. He replies that he should know better than this, and that they have known each other for a long time, and it's not like them to say something like that. Dokja is shocked when he tells him about reading that web novel, and he tells him about the past when he was always wearing those dark clothes, and his only friends were him and a couple of his colleagues. Only people like Sangha tried talking to him sometimes, and Dokja asked him what that had to do with anything. Mr. Yun asks him if he is secretly enjoying this and says he is just like him, and they are in the Ka department together. He asks him to remember what the others called them at work. Lab rats, good-for-nothing game testers with nothing better to offer. He asks him to look toward those people now, and they are the people who used to look down on them. He proudly tells him that they rack in 5,000 coins daily and earn them without having to clear any scenarios. He tells him that is exactly what their company did for the game monetization models. Suddenly, the earlier boy calls them, drops his dagger, and says he can't do it anymore. Mr. Yun calls him angrily and says he has ruined his plan. Some constellations are disappointed by the turn of events, and Dokja calls him and says there is a better way to get the coins if he is after them. He asks him about the way and asks if there is a way to spice things up there, and Dokja says they can use the constellations that are exciting things. They ask him about the method, and they will all ears to hear about him. Dokja activates his blade of faith, says what constellations really love is, and hits it to a cell forcefully and breaks it. Mr. Yun asks him what he is doing and why he broke the cage, but he hits another cage and frees the people. He breaks multiple cages at once and frees Sangha too. Some rush toward him to stop him, but he attacks them with his sword and cuts their legs. He injured 2 persons, while Mr. Yun angrily asks him about what he is doing. Dokja smiles and says he is thanking him for creating a situation that the constellation would really love. He received multiple notifications that the constellations are happy with his decision. They have gifted him 8,000 coins, and he asks him why he needs to make a farm when it's this easy to earn coins. Mr. Yun asks his men to get and kill him, and after some time, he lifts Seong, and she asks him what he is doing. She was pretending to be passed out so she could kill them all at once when their guards were down. Dokja says that he will leave her to them, but she asks him to wait and says she is out of health and mana. She says if he saves her, then all the constellations in his channel will leave, and she asks him if he doesn't know they hate seeing things drag on. Dokja asks her if she wants him to save her, and a constellation looking forward to a heron clasps his hands in anticipation. She tells him it's a cliché because the hero saved a beauty in distress, and she thought he didn't like clichés. Dokja kicks a man and says she is wrong about 2 things. One, he is not a hero, and the second, she is not a beauty. Meanwhile, the wanderers are gathering from other places, and he is notified that he has saved the life of someone of his own species, and his karma point has increased by 1. It is revealed that karma points are required to use the effects of the King of No Killing, and he gains a point whenever the system decides that he has saved someone. This means that Seong would have died if he left her there. She gets angry when he calls her ugly, and she asks him to let her down, so he throws her to the ground. She shouts at him and says she didn't mean like that, and Dokja asks her to fight with him if she loves clichés. He has set the stage for her, where all the wanderers are ready to attack them. Seong says that she may like clichés, but holding hands with a former enemy of mine is much too pass even for her. She gets up and says they will quickly finish this and move on to the next stage. Dokja says it's too late for her to try and look cool now, and the sub-scenario is that survival activities again appear in front of them, lasting for 10 days. Soon, they start fighting and stab the swords in one's body. They have killed many people, including Mr. Yun. After that, they check for their rewards and receive around 18,000 coins. Dokja doesn't want to split coins with her, but he wouldn't have made it without her. Mr. Yun is still alive and says he knew this was who he truly was. He exclaims that he should have realized when he first heard those rumors, but before he could say anything, Seong comes forward and beheads him. Dokja asks her what he is about to say, but she replies that he sure talks a lot for a bit part actor. He stares at her, and she asks him if he said that he is dead, and Dokja wonders why he looks upset. He remembers the time he spent with him, and Seong says he just let him ramble on just now and asks why he did that. She shouts at him and says constellations don't like frustrating situations like that, and he has to get straight to the action. Dokja thinks there is no way she would be worried about him. She says she doesn't know what she is talking about and can earn more coins if she lets them have their say before she kills them. He exclaims that there is no catharsis without a little frustration, and she says that constellations prefer to have him kill anyone right away. She asks him what he knows when he is not even an author, and he replies that he knows even better because he is a reader. He then takes out an old gentleman's suit, which looks old but still clean. He wears the suit and thinks its defense stat isn't too high. but it will be better than the robe of the great monk Samuel. He is then notified that he has saved the lives of people of his own species, and his current karma point reaches from 14 to 25. There are people already there whom he saved earlier, and he says he won't be able to help them from now on, and they are on their own from there. They seem worried, and Dokja thinks it may seem heartless, but he can't afford to look after them right now. He tells them there are still plenty of items, so they have to help themselves, and asks them to head toward Chungmuro if they can. There may be people there who can help them. They start looking for the items, but Dokja is shocked to see that they are fighting over things. They hit each other and are about to start a fight again, and Dokja wonders if this is what dokkaebi wants to show him. This is a world without a king that has spiraled out of control. The laws and principles they loved and their trust in humanity were all futile. They start fighting each other, and Seong asks them if they are all animals. She asks them to get a hold of themselves and use their heads if they want to survive. She says no one knows if they will encounter people like them again, so they must stick together, not kill each other. She tells them that they have enough weapons and essentials now, and picking up a few extra items there isn't going to make them stronger than Dokja. They all look toward them, and Seong says they can't be strong until they are undefeatable and asks them to find trustworthy allies, which is common sense. Dokja asks her how she knows about that line, and by saying this, she starts running in the opposite direction. Dokja looks for her for a while and starts running behind her. She shouts at him and asks why he is following her, and he asks her if she is plagiarizing her own lines now. Dokja remembers these lines. Until they are sure they are undefeatable, they must find trustworthy allies. He remembers this is what Young Hyuk said in TWSA to the survivors who came to him asking for advice. She replies that she didn't copy anything, and these lines are from her novel. Dokja runs behind her and asks why she is running, thinking she will never admit that she plagiarized the novel. He grabs and says he helped her, so she still owes him. He asks her to lend her a power bank if she has one. He is sure that she has plenty of power banks, and she shows him that she doesn't have any more, and that she lost them all in Gwanghwamun. Dokja asks her to let him have a look at the novel, and she asks him to pay for it if he wants to read it. He grabs her phone and asks how he is supposed to do that when all the servers are down. He wants to see if she has a file like him and can only be read by her. But he is surprised to see that he can read her novel. He reads about Young-hyuk, who quietly turned on his status window and wanted to check out the Eye of the Enlightened, a skill he had just obtained. Young-hyuk smiles while reading his status window, and he then tells Seong that she really must not have a conscience. The character profile is an exact copy of the one in TWSA, and she should have at least changed things around. She replies that TWSA refers to them as a supporting constellation, but she calls them sponsors. She tries to say that her novel is completely different, and he asks her about the main character's name. She changes the name of Young-hyuk to Young-hyun, and Dokja thinks if the author of TWSA sees this, he would have killed her. He asks her how many episodes she has read of the original novel, and she replies that she has read 99. She again tries to grab her phone, and Dokja finds out she has read up to episode 99. He wonders what the author of TWSA would say if he found out that the person who read his novel the most besides him was the plagiarist. He asks her if she knows where the meteorite will appear, and she replies that no meteorites will appear in her novel. She asks him about a thing called the Sealing Stone, and Dokja knows that Seong was the one who found the meteorite that had the fire dragon he slayed in Anguk Station. He leaves them, saying he will look for the Sealing Stones, and asks her if she knows about them. He remembers putting those fire dragon carcasses up for auction and wonders if they have been sold. He guesses that the dokkaebi of Seoul must be in a meeting. Their scenario has been ruined, so they must think about selling coins. He then opens the dokkaebi shop, thinking Bihyung is always too busy to message him, but still trying to sell his stuff. Many constellations are frustrated by the sudden ad, and Dokja is surprised to see that all the items he put up for auction have been sold. All the items have been sold at high prices, and they even took the bone he put up because he didn't have anywhere to store it. He thinks about the incarnations with this much money. Anna Croft, supported by a Nebula, Ranveer Khan of India, and Faihu from China. Seong asks her why he wants her to go with him, saying that he can make it alone and thinks taking her with him is a gamble. He remembers he almost died because of her, and if he looks at everything she has done so far, it means she is a horrible person. However, her avatar skill is useful, and she knows the most about the novel beside him, so she will be useful to him. He then tells her he follows her instruction to find trustworthy allies, which is the key to survival. He uses an item named Temporary Pledge and asks her to sign there. A notification appears with certain conditions that they will be under a contract until the end of the current scenario and won't harm each other until the end. Dokja thinks it's not as binding as a support contract, but this will be perfect for now, and Seong angrily asks him if he thinks she will sign something like this. Dokja replies that he is not forcing her, and Seong asks why she will follow her orders, which she has never done. Dokja respects her decision and is about to leave when she calls him. She says she will sign it under one condition. They have to share their intel because she has a lot she wants to ask him. She also reveals that she has the lie detection skill, so he can't lie to her, while Dokja worries about her new skill. First, she asks him about his attributes and activates her lie detection skill level 1. Dokja is surprised that she actually has the skill, although he doesn't yet have it. He replies that he doesn't know about his attributes, and she shockingly confirms that he is telling the truth. Dokja says he will answer 3 questions. She has already used one. She asks him how he doesn't even know about his attributes, and he replies that he doesn't know, and with this, her second chance finishes. She then asks him why he gave up the throne and says he ruined her plan by doing that. She asks him if he knows how hard she worked to stop the world from ending with those idiots. They would already be in the next scenario if she had the throne. Dokja replies Seoul would already be in ruins if he were on the throne. She is notified that Dokja is telling the truth, and she assumes that her skill must be broken. Dokja says it's working just fine, and it's not just her. They would have been doomed no matter who sat on the throne. She asks him how he knows what number renounce he is, and how he may know something that she doesn't. Dokja replies that he is not a renouncer, and her lie detection skill has confirmed that he is telling the truth. She then asks him how much TWSA she has read, and he replies that she has used up all 3 questions. She asks him to answer the last question and tries to follow him. Suddenly, Dokja observes footsteps approaching them and asks her to hide immediately. He activates his personal skill, character profile, but it can't be processed because the character doesn't have a registered profile. The species that appear there are called humanoid demons, and they look for them everywhere. A man brought them and said they should be around there somewhere, and they destroyed the coin forms. The demon attacks the man and kills him too, while Dokja thinks the wandering all have their way of survival, and some choose to remain as humans and run coin farms. Others give up their humanity and live on as a new species, and they must have used the meteorite. Seong reveals that she knows him and that he is a renouncer. She can tell this because of her power as the last renouncer, and she can see the other renouncers' stats and attributes. He remembers Minseom that the first disciple came to see him as soon as the scenario began, and it was because she could spot other renouncers with her skill. She reveals that is why she was suspicious of him, and her skill didn't work on him when he was obviously a renouncer. She informs him that a few people refused to join him, and that demon is one of them. She didn't give it much thought because most died right in the beginning, but he seems so powerful now. She tells him about his name, Minusong, and Dokja thinks he has definitely heard of that name before. Suddenly, he remembers his classmate who used to bully him, and he once thought about him. Seong tells him something is different about him, and he is unlike the other renouncers. Suddenly, he reaches them, and Seong reveals that he is a renouncer who has only read chapter 173. The demon laughs and says he has found them, and a notification appears there saying Tier 6 humanoid demon, werewolf Minusong, is checking its surroundings. He remembers the past when he used to bully him, and one day he grabbed him by the collar and asked him to stop reading and get them some snacks. He grabs him again by his collar and punches his stomach. He asks him if he was the one who destroyed his coin farm, and he activates the skill Carnivorous Threat level 5, while Seong activates her skill Mental Barrier level 3. She asks Dokja what he is doing and asks him to kill him on the spot. Minyu remembers his name and thinks he has heard about him before. At the same time, Dokja is notified that his movements have been slowed due to the effect of the Carnivorous Threat. By how he talks, Dokja is sure that he is undoubtedly Minusong, but he wonders how he can be a renouncer. There is no way a jock like him would have read the novel. Minyu says he looks familiar to him, and he remembers him from his school and asks him if he remembers about him. Dokja refuses, while Minu says he thinks he remembers about him. He is notified that his will to fight has reduced due to the effect of the carnivorous threat, and Minu exclaims that he would never guessed that a loser like him would survive this long. Dokja thinks Tier 6 humanoids may be strong, but he has even managed to beat a Tier 5 dragon, so he can't lose to someone like him. He tells Dokja that he is Minu Song, his high school buddy, and wonders if he is still alive. Dokja's personal skill, the fourth wall, is shaking, and he is shocked at the destruction of his most powerful skill. He now understands that it's not that he is strong, but the problem is with him. The skill didn't work properly when he entered Younghyuk's body in the first-person POV. He now understands what the fourth wall does, and Minu asks him about the things he used to read. He asks him about the rest of the novel and where he can read about it, while Dokja is notified that his personal skill, the fourth wall, is shaking. From the beginning, he thinks about the fourth wall and has this personal skill. He still doesn't know everything he can do, but he knows this. Minu uses his skill and throws him behind, causing Dokja to get seriously injured. He thinks his skill makes it so that he perceives this world as fictitious, and he can observe that the omen of the Great Hall looks like a regular old rain cloud. He senses that some things feel different at times, and unlike the real world, he can make quick decisions as if he is looking at himself from an outsider's perspective. It was all possible because he had fourth wall skill, and Seong tried to call him and ask what he was doing and why he was not fighting against him. She asks him to remember that she could trust him and why he lies there. In the meantime, other incarnations are fighting with Minu, but they are all nothing against him. Seong tries to wake him up, saying he told her she could count on him and why he was lying there. Dokja still thinks about his fourth wall skill, which refers to an invisible wall between the audience and the actors on the stage in a play. It divides the two groups so they cannot interact with each other. He tries to get up, thinking the fourth wall skill makes him perceive reality as a novel, but if it is shaking, that must be because he recognizes Minu as reality. Minu brutally kills everyone there, and he walks up to Seong and says it is a special power-up event. He asks her where the fun is in winning so easily all the time, and there's got to be some adversity to make things interesting. She asks him why he passed out, and he replies that he had some things to mull over. She asks him if he knows this man and says she didn't mean to eavesdrop, but she overheard what he said. Dokja replies that Minu traumatized her a little when they were young, and she says this doesn't make sense at all. She makes fun of him and says she will help him. She says people suddenly power up with a few words of encouragement in TWSA, while Dokja says he is not Hyunseong Lee. Dokja feels more pain than usual when he is hit because he forgets that the fourth wall also works to alleviate pain. She asks him to look at Minu, and there is no way that thing is human, and the Minu Song, who used to bully him, is no longer there. What he sees in front of him is just a humanoid monster. He is 20 years old now. Dokja also thinks he is no longer the 17-year-old whose biggest problem is his school bully, and a constellation who likes revenge plots has revealed his nickname, and the constellations, the one who overcame the trials a little too late, is rooting for him. He thinks he can't have the fourth wall shake every time he comes across someone who has traumatized him. Suddenly, he receives a notification that a bounty scenario, Overcome Trauma, has arrived, and a constellation has requested him to undertake a bounty scenario. He asks Dokja to wipe that blood off his nose and stand back since she has done enough. He then spends 6,000 coins on agility. His entire body feels as agile as the wind. He has spent 15,000 coins on strength, and his muscles bulge like a monster. He then activates his Unbreakable Faith's special property, and the Ether Affix has converted to Holy. Seong tries to call him and asks if he will be alright. Meanwhile, Minu is tearing people apart when he feels Dokja's appearance. He faces him, thinking he will be fine since he has finished powering up. He then runs toward and hits him with just one blow of his sword. Minu is shocked at how fast he moves, while Dokja punches him and makes him fall to a distance. He then spends 7,000 coins on agility again, and a flurry of swiftness overcomes his entire body. After that, he moves swiftly and cuts one of his arms and makes him shocked. Minu cries in pain, but Dokja is shocked to see that he has a physical regeneration skill exclusive to werewolves. However, his regeneration is too fast, and he wonders if he is receiving protection of some kind from a constellation. He thinks this is even better for him because the goal of the bounty scenario isn't to kill him, but to overcome his trauma. The constellation, who overcame the trials a little too late, is focused on his next move. Dokja thinks the constellations won't be happy if it were that easy, so he spends 8,000 coins on strength. He has garnered the giant's interest with his strength, and his overall stats have neared the limit set for the scenario. He calls Minyu and says he didn't get to greet him properly earlier and jumps toward him to punch him. He then jumps from his place, punches his face with his full might, and throws him away to the ground. He has been injured badly, and Dokja says he should have apologized to him when he asked if he had any conscience. He punches him again and says he is glad to see him, but he is shocked to see him transforming into human form again. As soon as Dokja looks into his eyes, his personal skill, the fourth wall, starts shaking again. He thinks Seong was right that there is no such thing as a bit of trauma. He is definitely stronger than him now, but his fists are shaking, and he tries to attack him again, but this time he is not that powerful. Minyu calls him and says he used to be a loser who read fantasy novels all day long, and Dokja says that loser is all grown up. However, he doesn't seem to have matured since then, while Dokja thinks he was helpless and weak back then. All he did before then was read, and if he can't defeat him at the moment, he will continue to have the same nightmares, and then the 17-year-old Dokja will forever be stuck in that moment. He beats him repeatedly and thinks this is not enough to make up for what he did to him, while Minyu asks him to stop. He apologizes to him and says he didn't know better, while Dokja says he doesn't understand him, that he is not beating him to get an apology out of him, and that he is not the one he should be apologizing to. His past version of Dokja calls him and asks what he is doing, and says Minyu was just young and immature. It was just something stupid he did in his youth, and as an adult, he should stop this senseless violence. He thinks about Junghyuk, wonders what he would have done then, and remembers when he read the novel. Junghyuk killed everyone who betrayed him and found everyone to take his revenge. Dokja is now relieved by thinking this was what Junghyuk would have done, and he says to Minyu that he still has some growing up to do. He is notified that his personal skill, the fourth wall, is beginning to shake less, and he punches him, saying he still reads fantasy novels. He hits him forcefully and makes him fall to the ground at a great distance. Minyu is poorly injured, so the bounty scenario has been cleared. The apparent condition for the bounty scenario has been met, and Seong comes to him and asks if he is mad and how he can beat up a werewolf with his bare hands. Dokja tells her he is not dead yet, and his fourth wall is no longer shaking at seeing him. He has not fully overcome his trauma, but he guesses he has gained a little tolerance against it. The constellations are cheering for him. One has offered him his stigma. Dokja is surprised that he is offering his stigma to him and has obtained the stigma of self-justification. After that, the constellation, the one who overcame the trials a little too late, is smiling at him in satisfaction, and now he has a defense system that makes him impervious to trauma. He wonders about the advantage of the stigma, while another constellation, the prisoner of the golden headband, is rolling on the floor laughing. Meanwhile, Seong calls him and asks him to kill Minyu, and he wonders if he should kill him. It won't break any rules since it's not even human, and the constellation in Dokkaebi's channel will love it if he does this. He is notified that many constellation wants to see him take revenge. He changes his mind and asks Seong to go from there, while many constellations are disappointed by his hypocrisy. Theon asks him if he will not kill him since he probably has a lot of coins, and she asks him permission to kill him by herself. He allows her and says she will regret it though, and she is confused for a while by what he says. She then decides to kill him for the coins and stabs the sword in his body badly. Suddenly, she receives many notifications and wonders what is happening to her. She is notified that the Demon King, the Discord Architect, has noted his presence because he killed the Tier 6 humanoid demon, werewolf Minyu Song. The Demon King, the Architect of Discord, will remember the incarnation who delivered the final blow. The Demon King, the Architect of Discord, will send its subjects out to search for the incarnation who had the final blow. Seong is shocked to see the final blow Seong Han, and Dokja laughs and says he already told her that she would regret it. After some time, she is angry at him and abuses him, and asks him how he can do this to her. Dokja thinks the constellations aren't the only powerful beings on the star stream, but there are powerful beings who have refused to become constellations and wander the scenarios. That powerful being is called the Demon King, And just as the constellations have their incarnations, demon kings seek subjects, usually those who have become humanoid demons or devil-type monsters. It is revealed that Andras, the architect of discord, is a demon king in the lower ranks of the 72 demon kings, and wolves represent him. Dokja asks her not to worry and says he knew someone who a demon king like her cursed, but he didn't die right away. He remembers Mr. Han, who was cursed by the demon king, the god of wrath and lust, and he consoles her saying the architect of discord isn't even ranked that high. Being cursed by a demon king will get her a lot of donations by gaining favors of absolute good alignment. She states that the constellation she is after isn't on good terms with them, and he asks her if she is trying to become the subject of a demon king. Dokja notices something and asks her what constellation she is after, which means she doesn't have a supporting constellation yet. It is revealed that it's better to hold off choosing a supporting constellation for as long as possible. There are plenty of great constellations, and it's possible they could come across even better ones depending on their activity. However, Dokja doesn't expect someone as strong as Seong not to have one, and she replies that she just hasn't chosen yet. She exclaims that she has only gotten one shot at it, and asks him why she should be so hasty to decide on her first regression. Dokja asks her who she is going to choose, or if she has anyone specific in mind, and she replies that he will be shocked if he knows, and they have even shown interest in him. He wonders if she is after the Great Sage, but she asks him if he knows about a constellation named the Abyssal Black Flame Dragon. Dokja is shocked to hear this and is notified that the constellation is watching him. He wishes her good luck and says he would make a great supporting constellation, and is informed that the constellation is disappointed in him. She then asks him about the constellation that makes him so high and mighty. However, they reach a place that seems to be the werewolf's headquarters. It looks like someone has already been through there. He is notified that the fourth wall skill has nullified his emotional shock, and he thinks there are a few ways for humans to transform into a humanoid demon, and one way is cannibalism. These types of beasts feed on other humans, and most humanoid demons accidentally become one while scavenging for food. Once they transform, they no longer hesitate to kill other humans. He observes that this kind of thing makes Seong angry too, and she is surprised that he can't feel anything after seeing all this. Dokja tells her about other prophets. They told him about her objective to take over the world with the information she had. She doesn't confess this and says this is absurd, as when people called her out as a plagiarist. Her first goal was to stop the world from ending, and she gathered all the disciples because they were greedy. Suddenly, they heard a noise from the side, a gunshot's voice. They run toward the side while he thinks the military has already died out, but someone is still left. When they reach the place, they are shocked to see that there are many werewolf carcasses burnt to a crisp. Dokja sees many elemental bullets infused with holy properties there, and there is a group of people having bullets in their hands. Seong tells him they are a group like his and have a female leader who acts like a renouncer, but nothing comes up on the profile when she checks. She tells him that they are also wanderers and have become the most substantial group. Dokja wonders why he didn't see them at the battle for the throne, and they immediately take out their weapon, seeing one of them ready to attack them. He shoots his gun, but his target is one of the wolves beside them, and there is also the meteorite the werewolves had. Dokja is shocked to see that it is lying there and remembers it's the yellow meteorite that wards off catastrophe. The boy asks him if he is Dokja Kim, and he is shocked at how they know his name. He replies that they must be mistaken and says his name is Younghyuk Kim. Seong is shocked at his lie, while he again lies saying Dokja Kim is someone he hates. He asks Seong to tell that renouncer she should not mess with him and asks her to just say from now on. The boy says lying is pointless because they already know he is Dokja Kim. Seong confirms that the person is telling the truth, and the boy reveals that their king has said that they will entrust him with the meteorite. Dokja is shocked that they know him and now want him to give them the meteorite. He asks them about their identity, and the boy recipes that they are the subjects of the king of the wanderers. He asks if the girl with the flag is their king, but she doesn't seem to have a flag. He replies that their king doesn't care for such trivial things and gives him his king's message that they will deal with the catastrophe in the north, and he has to deal with the remaining 4 catastrophes. They are about to leave when Dokja asks them to wait, while Seong asks where they are going and asks them to explain themselves. But they don't listen to them, and she asks Dokja if he knows their king, but he doesn't. He tries to check her character profile, but she doesn't seem to have a registered account, and he thinks to update his attribute window. After updation, new characters have been added, and he checks the character profile of the boy Yongrin, and Dokja finds out that he is Josian's top spiritualist. He didn't know that there was an incarnation who had Giannucci as their supporting constellation, and he was notified that Josian's top spiritualist was watching him warily. He thinks he may not be as powerful as a judge, but she even has the enforcer class, which is almost as good. He wonders how powerful the king is if her subject is at this level, and he tries to check her character profile. The girl stops and stares at him, and he receives a notification that this character's information cannot be viewed using a character profile. He is shocked that she doesn't have a registered character profile, and he can't find any information about her. Dokja seems shocked while thinking about something, and Sejong asks him about what he is thinking about, and he replies that there is nothing with him. He believes this was more shocking than when he saw Minu Song. There is only one person who has traumatized him more than him, and he feels his body shaking even with the fourth wall skill. He seemed to know the girl, and he didn't realize she was in Seoul. Meanwhile, some people come out of a building, and they seem survivors, and Dokja guesses that they helped the people who were captured by the werewolves. He remembers her from earlier and thinks he almost forgot for a moment that she didn't need the flag or be on a throne to be a king.